let's go ahead and get started. Um, Again, I cannot say this, you're gonna hear me say thank you a lot, sorry in advance. But thank you again, everyone, for joining, for signing up, jumping on Zoom. Welcome to Manzanar at Dusk. Hi, my name is Jason Fuji. I'm the one that most of you probably got a bunch of emails here and there from with all these different links and stuff like that. So thank you for being patient with that and um, giving us the opportunity to share our stories, and then hopefully everyone the opportunity to hear your own personal stories too, and hopefully build those connections. So in general, this is our 23rd annual Manzanar Dusk and our first actual virtual Manzanar Dusk. So this in on itself is groundbreaking and historic. Again, my name is Jason Fuji, and along with Wendy and Mastro, we are the co-coordinators of Manzanar Dusk. Before we actually get into the complete program, I do want to go over a few Zoom guidelines. First, and everyone's just doing a great job already, is we ask that you keep your microphone muted until the small group discussions where we welcome everyone in the group to share. Next, if you have not done so already, can you please, if you can, rename yourself so that it's just your first and last name. So when I do break up people into the small group discussions, I know who exactly I'm moving around. And also when we get into those discussions, people know exactly what your name is and who to call you. If you would like, you're more than welcome to include your pronouns too. During the small group discussion, please make sure you're in a quiet environment. During this time is when mics will be on and off, and just to be aware of your surroundings so it doesn't catch any of the background noise is greatly appreciated. And finally, again, and it won't be the last time, thank you again for joining us tonight. And we hope you're able to learn something new and build connections with people that you probably would have never met just because either the distance or community or location or whatever that is. We are pleased to say we have people coming from across not only California, but across the United States and even out of country. We have people from Japan. I think I saw some people that signed up from Canada, and it's just great to see how widespread this event and this message and what we're trying to do can reach and the possibilities that we could do. Okay. So a little bit about Manzanar Dust. Manzanar started as Manzanar at After Dark and was held around a campfire near Independence in 1997. It was started by two former Manzanar committee members, Jenny Kuita and Ayako Hagihara, with the goal of fostering an environment that promoted intergenerational discussion. The program grew from 25 people to 130 at Legion Hall, and in 2019, we had almost 500 people. So it has greatly expanded, and it's just great to see it grow. Uh, and even across, again, this virtual world, while we're not at 500, it still shows how far we could really spread and reach. And Manzanar at Dusk has always asked the question of what can we do now and how can we address these unfortunate recurrent events? I would like to pass on to Wendy, please.
Yeah, so Manzanar at Dusk is a collaborative effort between the Manzanar Committee and members of Nikkei Student Unions from Cal Poly Pomona, CSU Fullerton, CSU Long Beach, UCLA, UC Riverside, and UC San Diego that is meant to continue educating others about the significance of the Japanese American incarceration experience. This partnership has always been significant to us. We see it as a means of nurturing younger generations to connect with Japanese American history and pass it on to others. We are always grateful to our students who put so much time into this event. And these students have actually spent almost an entire year virtually planning for today's event, including participating in Katari, a 2-day intensive training on Zoom with the Manzanar Committee and the National Park Services at Manzanar National Historic Site, where they actually got to hear from former incarcerees as well as Paiute and Shoshone activists. They have committed many hours and days to this event and have put together an amazing program for you all. Today we have a panel of activists across generations to speak of the lingering trauma of World War II incarceration and the importance of redress and reparations to understanding the precarious time we live today. as we navigate fear, survival, and how to care for one another during this pandemic. We have also seen and experienced a rise in anti-Asian violence. We continue to witness anti-Blackness in all its forms, including the murder of Black men, women, and trans folks. And despite a liberal democratic shift in the administration, we are still seeing immigrants caged at the border. Drawing on the experiences and memories of Japanese American incarceration and the resiliency of our community, we hope to prompt all of us to think about the ways in which Japanese Americans become allies to other groups of color who continue to experience racial violence. Now I want to hand off our program to our students and introduce our MC, Christina Ho. Christina is a second-year student from UC Riverside, currently the public relations of NSU. And Christina has emceed and hosted a variety of events, including lectures and NSU events at UCR. So go ahead and take it away, Christina.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. And thank you, everyone, for making it out to the event tonight. I hope everyone had a chance to watch our virtual pilgrimage earlier today. And if you haven't watched it yet, it is available on the Manzanar Committee YouTube channel. So before we all meet our panelists, we wanted to share a few oral histories that are connected to tonight's topics. A brief disclaimer though, you may have to adjust your volumes for the videos and audios. So our first oral history is by Jean Akutsu. The following video is a segment of an oral history from Jean Akutsu. Jean is a Nisei Japanese American citizen born on September 23, 1925 in Seattle, Washington. On December 8, 1941, Jean's father was taken in by the FBI and separated from his family. The rest of Jean's family, including Jean himself, were later incarcerated at the Minidoka incarceration camp, remaining separated from Jean's father. This segment of the oral history records some of Jean's thoughts on these experiences.
Gene, at the beginning of the incarceration, when you first went into Puyallup, what did you think about, what was going to happen, your feelings about the country, what your attitudes were in the early days of the internment?
Well, as a young kid, I really didn't think too much of it. Not as as an older person should or would think that would say, well, it'll be over in a few days or few weeks, and it'll be back to normal, kind of an attitude. And we used to have visitations, and these people from Seattle would go out there. The white people, the church members, and so on and so forth would come down, and they'd come to see the people who were incarcerated. And when they would try to go up through the barbed wire fence and try to shake hands, the guards would say, "Get away from there." And then you find out that, gosh, you really mean business here, where they really don't trust us. But there's a few people that came visiting, and that's how they were treated. And eventually, the cold, hard facts starts to penetrate. I wasn't bitter or anything, but then I thought it wasn't right. As I have spoken before, in my senior year, not senior year, but junior year, no, sophomore year, we were learning civics, the working of the democracy, how the branches of the government and structure and anything to do with democracy, and all that was completely wiped out when the Executive Order 9066 was signed by the President. And that was quite disappointing. This was an afterthought of, I thought, gosh, maybe what I should have done was to write a little note to my civics teacher and tell him all that what you taught us went down the drain. But I never did get around to doing that.
Well, going back to sort of this, the further on into Puyallup, those later months, right before you were sent to hunt. I mean, how much did your attitude change toward the government in terms of how long you were going to be incarcerated?
Well, I guess my thoughts were still the same, that this would be just a short while, and things will go back to normal, because we've never experienced anything like this. But latter part of August, they had asked for volunteers to go out to into Idaho, into our new permanent internment, to help get things ready to accept the crews, or a bunch of people that are be coming every week. And we were the first group, I think it was the first group to head out that way.
Thank you. Our next oral history is from Paul Takagi. The Manzanar Revolt occurred between December 5th and December 6th in 1942. The revolt occurred as a result of the beating of Japanese American Citizen League leader Fred Tayama and the arrest of Haya Ueno for the beating. During the revolt, there were several conflicts with the police, including the tear gassing of the crowd and firing of shots, which led to the death of Jin Kanagawa and James Ito. The military police involved escaped prosecution or disciplinary action as in common today. Paul Takagi was a Nisei Japanese American citizen born May 3, 1923, in Auburn, California. His family was incarcerated at Manzanar, where he was orderly. In this oral history, Paul describes his experience with Jim Kanagawa in the hospital after the revolt. He describes his feelings and how traumatizing events of the Manzanar Revolt influenced his thinking and actions regarding the oppression of people of color.
James was lying on his right side because he was shot in the back, and there's a drainage bag, but no oxygen, no hydration system, and he really, really needed it. And I wondered, where in the hell's the doctors and where's the nurses? The damn place is empty, okay? And or at least it appeared empty. And then during the night he says, that's all he said twice, I don't want to die, I don't want to die, okay? And I'm watching him like this, and I have my peak coat on, I'm cold, and my head is saying, come on, Paul, let's go for a walk. And that's what my head says, but my body doesn't move. And then later on said, come on, Paul, let's go get some coffee. I can't move. And I'm frozen. I'm really, really frozen. And I told Brenda this story, and she thought I was in a state of
PTSD. Definitely trauma.
Kind of in a trauma. And finally, 8 o'clock rolled along, and I quit, and I really had to. And for the next December, January, February, March, April, for 5 months, I did nothing. And I just got books from the library, just read all night. The literature says that he died 4 days later out of infection, okay? And infection is not, it's totally a different analysis, than from the wounds, and anyway, it did something to me, and in all my life, and it became something in my consciousness that influenced everything I did. And it's not anger so much as it is an understanding of what poor people undergo, what defenseless people undergo in this country. And it's really a criticism of this country, and not necessarily the officials and doctors here in this at Manzanar, but this is a more general problem in this small place. It was demonstrated by what I saw that night and felt that night and felt ever since and to this day. And it's there. And it guided me in terms of the kind of research I did as a professor at Berkeley, and everything I do and write is related to the oppression of defenseless people.
Our last oral history is from Jim Matsuoka. Jim Matsuoka is a Nisei Japanese American citizen who grew up in Los Angeles and was forcibly removed to the Manzanar incarceration camp. After leaving camp, he became an integral member of the Redress movement to compensate all the incarcerated and mistreated Japanese Americans. The following videos are of Jim testifying at commission hearing in Los Angeles in 1981. They are personal and emotional accounts on his experience with the state and unjust incarceration. They reveal the reality and history of the United States that was important not only in the past, but also today.
Do you know what Anna's blood type is? He was asking.
I was 7 years old when we had a Christmas party. And I remember they provided us with toys from the outside. And I got this old repainted toy. And the adult who gave it to me was rather embarrassed because the toy was clearly broken. So they passed out this stuff, and I took it, and I could see that he felt very bad. And I can understand these feelings because I have a child of my own. The last thing I'd want to give him is a broken toy. Well, I took that toy, and I threw it in the trash can later on. I looked at it, and I threw it away, right on the spot. Okay. And to me, that toy symbolizes how we as a minority are treated in this country. Second class, broken, all the promises are broken. We will not be second-class citizens ever again. Now, you wonder what I am. I'm one of the younger Niseis, and I am a product of the camps. Okay, and what you're looking at, in many ways, is sort of a living cancer cell. And I'm going to multiply and really make this country sick in many ways. And the only cure for something like me is to really show me that you have a country that can live up to some of its promises. The cure is that if you behave as a nation of laws, something can be done. And that these laws are going to have to apply equally to all Americans, whether our national origins be Asian, American Indian, African, European, or Hispanic American. And there can be a cure if we make sure that there is no such thing as separate laws for Swedish Americans, Chinese Americans, Mexican Americans, etc. Now, we may all do things differently, but when it comes down to the law, it must apply the same to all citizens. And I think that is one way, the most effective way, to cure this thing. And if not, this patient is going to slowly start to sicken.
With keeping the oral histories in mind, I would like to introduce our panelists for tonight. We have Kathy Masaoka, Traci Kato-Kiriyama, and Megan Matsumoto. Born and raised in the Boyle Heights area of Los Angeles, Kathy Masaoka came of age in the 1960s. The Civil Rights Movement, the Vietnam War, the struggle for ethnic studies, and Asian American studies clarifies her identity as a Japanese American and minority in this country, along with the importance of community and internationalism. She went on to become a teacher, a leader of the Little Tokyo People's Rights Organization, and a bit later, the National Coalition for Redress Reparation, now known as Nikkei for Civil Rights and Redress, Vigilant Love, and Nikkei Progressiveness. Our next panelist is traci kato-kiriyama. She is a writer, performer, actor, theater artist, organizer, and educator who has been presented in hundreds of venues throughout the country and featured in several print and online media platforms. She is committed to this intersection of arts, activism, and healing praxis through creative solidarity work as an artist organizer with Vigilant Love, member of Nikkei Progressives, director, co-founder of Tuesday Night Project, which is the presenter of the long-standing Asian American art series Tuesday Night Cafe. She is also the author of an upcoming book of poetry, micro essays, and notes to self titled Navigation Without Instruments. Our last panelist is Megan Matsumoto, president of California State University, Fullerton Nikkei Student Union, and the member of the 2021 Manzanar At Dusk organizing committee, and has been part of the Qatari program for the past 2 years. So to start off our panelist questions, is everyone on camera? Yes, okay. Our first question of tonight, what are you and the organizations that you are involved in currently doing in light of recent events? The anti-Asian hate, the violence, BLM, supporting HR 40, family separation, immigration rights, and etc.
Christina, okay, shall I start? Okay, so that's a whole lot of stuff. And at first, when I remember hearing and seeing all the topics, I said, wow, that's a lot to cover. But when I really thought about it, they're all connected, you know. And I want to start off by saying that, you know, two things happened this past 2 weeks. One was the guilty verdict of the officer who murdered George Floyd. And the other was the passage of the Redress and Reparations bill for African Americans, HR 40, out of the Judiciary Committee. And I thought about the fact that many people have said this, you know, many Black people have been killed constantly, right, over and over and continuously. And HR 40 or reparations has been a demand for a long time. And so I thought, why now? You know, why is it happening that there are these small victories happening? And of course, I don't think it would have happened before the pandemic, which kind of turned our whole world upside down.
I got it up on my computer. I was going to take it up to Nathan unless you want to see it.
Oh, I think I hear somebody. But it kind of turned our world upside down and made us really clarify, like those videos were really quite good. You know, it turned the world upside down and made you look at who is important, what's important, and what really is the society about, who is it serving? And I think it made us think about reimagining what kind of world we do want. And, you know, I have to say for myself, we've accepted a lot of things for a long time, saying, well, you know, yeah, we want to see reparations for African Americans, but well, you know, maybe it'll happen. Yes, we want to see the killings of innocent people stop. You know, yes, we want to see fewer people in the jail, or we don't want the jail system and all of that. But we really didn't do that much, you know, to make it happen. And I think this period for me, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but it really challenged me to really think harder and to rethink, unlearn, relearn. And I, you know, it's kind of like, what can our world be? And Jim said, you know, that we are the cancer. And I kind of think that, I don't think we're the cancer. I think that racism and the whole foundation of this country, when we say systemic racism, we don't mean a little piece here and there, we mean the whole system. And, you know, this country was built on stolen lands. It was built on the on the labor of Black people, and that has persisted. And the camps were not a mistake in my mind. None of it's a mistake. Anti-Asian violence is not a mistake. It's going to happen. We're lucky at times not to be targeted, but that is not the system that's going to, this is what it is. And so I think it's making us see things very clearly, and that we have to, we are actually the cure. We are not the cancer, we are the cure. We have to build those relationships and see that we are all connected. So, that was a long intro to talking about reparations for African Americans, and the family separation and immigration, all the work that we do. It's all part of it. It's not just because we have the same experience. It's because we are all affected by the same cause. And unless we target that, none of us really are going to be, free of that. It's sort of, like I say, like I really come to realize solidarity doesn't mean I'm doing it because we're allies. I'm doing it because we're all connected. And that, if we can undo some of the, and what we're doing right now is that we're just trying to survive. We're trying to survive as we undo things and as we relearn and build connections. But I'm gonna pass it to Tracy to talk a little more about HR 40 and however else she wants to start her comments.
Thanks, Kathy. Hi, everybody. Hi, Megan. Nice to meet you. And hi, Christina. Thank you so much. Yeah, so Kathy and I work in a couple organizations together, most closely currently with Nikkei Progressives. I am a collaborator with NCRR, Nikkei for Civil Rights and Redress, that Kathy is an active member and co-chair of. And so in Nikkei Progressives, we've been doing, especially over the last year, a lot of really intense engagement in various areas, including immigration, and also in education in terms of going really deep in to learn more about the reparations movement as led by Black folks, Black leaders, Black organizations. We went through a process of internal education to really do a lot of reading, do a lot of discussion, a lot of viewings around the issue, and started to work on a statement that has become like a really long essay that in essence prepared us for supporting Kathy when she testified for Congress in front of the Judiciary Committee to basically give our support for HR 40. And I'm not sure if you all know what HR 40 is. Basically, it is a bill to study and develop reparations proposals for the enslavement of African Americans. But also it is, is a lot of thought and work being done to broaden out what that means, to include the era of Jim Crow, to really address the systems and laws and institutions from the academic to the corporate, right? And definitely the government institutions to really keep folks in the Black community down, right? And to really think about the ways in which reparations has been called for since even before the civil rights. And they have been denied reparations. They were denied property and that they were promised at the end of slavery, right? And so this is not a new movement, it is not a new call. It is calling for justice that has been called for from over a century ago. So we've been participating a lot with the HR 40 Coalition. Last summer, there was a letter called the Why We Can't Wait letter. And then I will see when we're chatting, I will get that letter up and then share it in the chat, or if any of you have access to that right now, you can share it in the chat. You can also look it up. It's the Why We Can't Wait letter around HR 40. And so over 300 organizations, including Nikkei Progressives, NCRR, San Jose Nikkei Resistors, Tsudu for Solidarity, a lot of Japanese American Nikkei groups signed on to become a part of this coalition, to really be present and to be vocal, to say that we totally support the move to not just study, but to develop reparations proposals. So we've also been looking locally at the California initiative, AB 3121, which was signed off by Newsom and is creating a task force to also look at California and the Californian history involved in the racial wealth gap and in redlining and in Black codes. And so, looking also into state initiatives and proposals that can be developed for the California state system to also make reparations. And we've just been developing relationships with folks at Human Rights Watch. Dreesen Heath is an amazing leader, advocate, researcher who's been writing a lot about the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre and has been making a lot of connections between all of these different points in time, which bring us to now. So I mean, we could go on and on. I know we're like starting like really like bam about like our organizations and work, but maybe I'll pause there because I would love to hear from Megan.
Hi everyone. Yeah, so I'm a little new to activism and things like that, but I've mainly been doing a lot of research about everything that's been going on because that's where everything starts. So I really just want to make sure I have like a firm foundation and everything before I start really getting involved in anything else, because I really want to make sure that I know anything and everything that I'm talking about when it comes to HR 40 or family separation or anything like that. So as of right now, I'm personally doing research. I know our NSU has been posting a lot on social media about our support for other communities and things like that. But as of right now, that's all that's going on for me.
Thank you so much, everyone. And as you all mentioned, your involvement in these influential organizations, even if it's just research, we would like to know how much of these involvements in the movement is tied to knowing your family histories.
I think that it is all tied to knowing our family history. I mean, I wouldn't have been involved if I had not learned even a little bit, because in 1969, when I took Asian American Studies class at Berkeley, there wasn't a lot, right? Because there weren't a lot of books written. So I learned a little bit, but I learned a lot more in the community, by meeting people and listening to people, and just learning about the Japanese American community here in Los Angeles was a whole history lesson. And I think that, of course, has been the guiding force for my involvement, and of course the pilgrimages, and we only had Manzanar at that time, and our families that were not talking about the camps, so we didn't learn from them those stories. We had to learn from other people by going to these places. So yeah, it's all tied, and I feel like, the redress movement was a huge part of my education. And the stories that I heard, the stories that you shared with the oral histories and the testimonies, were all part of a total eye-opener, a transformation for many of the sansei, older sansei that were around and listening. It changed our lives, basically. It really changed our lives. And it made us recommit ourselves to fighting for redress, even if many of us really didn't know if it would ever happen. It's kind of something that we felt we had to do. I just want to add a little note, and slightly off topic, but I did want to acknowledge the fact that, that 300 Japanese Americans submitted testimonies to the hearing on HR 40. And that shows a huge understanding in our community of how important reparations for slavery and its legacy is. And that was gathered very quickly together. And I have to acknowledge Student for Solidarity for gathering those together and submitting them. And many people across this country, Japanese American groups, are studying reparations, as Megan is doing. We're all trying to study and to learn. And I think as you study and learn, you really do understand the depth of suffering, harms, and the ongoing harms that are continuing today. So, we're in a constant state of learning So, and you're right that we have to do that. It's just constant learning, and we hope that we can do workshops where we all learn together. But, and redress was the gift that kept on teaching. We kept on learning, and I'm still learning. So I think that it's a real strong force for me.
Moving with that, how is these movements connected to healing for you all?
Let's see. Maybe I can sort of address the last two questions sort of together. My work principally is as an artist and an organizer, and sort of the meshing intersection of both. So I'd actually like to read a poem. It's a short poem, and maybe that will be my answer to the last two questions. This is dedicated to all the ancestors who died before knowing that redress and reparations would be a thing to come, or to be fought for in the future we call now. No redress, no museum, no monument, no poem, no song can house the spirit of a past soul like that of my grandfather, who died before justice could meet the old man at his mailbox. Grandpa never got to stand in line at the bank, 3 inches taller, with redress check in hand, 1 foot in front of the other, feeling grounded again. Never got to deposit an apology in his savings account. Never got to wonder of how he might spend this money on new equipment for the nursery, or a truck for himself, or college money for his grandchildren, or for once, take the most Takai cuts from the fish truck man. Most years in April, I attend pilgrimage. I say, hello, Manzanar. I bow at the graves. I speak to the wind of my hopes for afterlife to be a real thing. Not so I can see Grandpa again, but for him to look around today, jump into the circle, dance the tonkobushi and watch me get it right, and see our friends, all our relations. Learn what we mean by chosen family. We are here, not only to remember, but to remind the local docents this place will never be a museum. This body will never forget. And we leave pilgrimage with pledges as concrete as the monument. We sing songs to keep each other awake on the long ride home. We lose sight quickly. Rearview mirrors, a pitch black sky, where they close the gate at the hour they have had enough of us, where we leave behind parts of our best poetry, where I hope not, but think Grandpa sits still, waiting. So I wanted to share that to say, yeah, the question is, yes, how is it related to family? You know, like it's everything. And every time I go back to the pilgrimage, I think about the reasons for the work we're doing now as totally connected. I'll pause there, but thank you for letting me share that.
Thank you so much. I know you all talked about solidarity, but more its connection with everyone. And to continue that, how can the Japanese American and Asian American community be in solidarity with groups who are currently fighting for reparations and against family separations?
Well, I think I touched on it a little bit in the first response, and I've been really thinking about that word solidarity a lot because I think I realized that my understanding of it really wasn't that deep, and when we started out in the movement in the in the 60s, I think we had a better understanding actually of solidarity, and we knew each other better. We knew we worked together. We worked with other communities. We had relationships. And so we kind of understood each other's lives and what we were going through. And I feel that maybe I drifted a little bit away from that in terms of focus on, issues like redress, which was fine, but I think that it also impacted a bit my continued understanding of solidarity, because I realized that, just supporting anti-apartheid, just supporting Hopi Navajo in America and who are fighting for their land, it's not enough. These intermittent type of things that you see, well, because it's similar to our situation or we want support from each other, that's not the reason to do it. So solidarity really means that we do understand, because we know each other's conditions, we know each other's communities, and we know each other, that we understand that the basis for all of our suffering right now comes from the same place. And it is so embedded and so deep. And everything we do to wedge any of it out, to get rid of the cancer, which is it helps. It helps the body, it helps all of us, right? Because the body's healthier. And I think that's what our job right now is, that we're trying to make this, we're trying to survive. Number one, our community was trying to survive after camp. And many people are just trying to survive right now. And so we do things partly to survive, but we have to do things also to heal. And we also have to do things to undo and to really make that fundamental change. And in that process, we are getting stronger and we're building these relationships. And I think I do agree with a lot of people that say, we aren't the answer. It is us. We are the answer to what is going on. So part of it is that we have to work on ourselves. We have to heal ourselves. We have to become stronger. And, it's really been a year. I think that everybody here can agree to that. It has been a year. And it's been a year that has forced us to really challenge everything that we thought, and, make us really try to, I hope, hold on to what we think could be better, and that, that a crisis and things could happen very easily, and we have very little control, and that the only thing that's going to save us is our relationships with each other, and by building a different kind of way. And so even with the anti-Asian violence, I think we're talking about, we don't want to feed into the same system of violence and dealing everything, in that way, and dealing with everything that way. As Reverend Nodi of Higashi Temple said, we want to remain a welcoming community, and we want to try to do things differently. Yes, we know it's not going to be possible to do everything. We don't have everything in place. We're still trying to figure that out. But, and in the meantime, we have to be safe, so it's a lot of things that we have to deal with right now. And solidarity, is something that is so important. And, people want to bring up, well, African Americans, maybe some of the people that are targeting Asian Americans, we're all part of the system that has poisoned so many people, and we have to undo all of that. We have to teach each other, and we have to kind of, build and become healthier together. So, I mean, to me, that's what solidarity is.
Megan, why don't you go, and then I'll follow you.
Yeah, so I think really the most important thing to be doing right now is to be listening to other communities and to really be trying to learn everything that you can and try and unlearn things that are wrong now. And I really think that the best thing to be doing right now is to be doing research, or even something as simple as voting or sending letters to your senators or to other things like that, or signing petitions. Just do all the little things that you think don't really matter, because they do really make a difference.
Yeah, and I totally super support all of what's said. And the only thing I'll add is, just to really hone in on that point that Kathy was making about, folks talking about perpetrators of violence, of anti-Asian violence and things, that we really have to remember how white supremacy works, right? that if we start to get into divide and conquer and to, you know, play into that, right, and to think of ourselves as a model minority, or think of any Asian group or any group as a model minority, if we start to just get into, you know, well, who's helping who when, and they're not showing up now, and, you know, they didn't show up then, then white supremacy wins. This is that's what's exactly supposed to happen, right? We're supposed to look for the scapegoat amongst us, right? And that's so dangerous. This is actually such an opportunity to broaden even the language of stop Asian hate. You know, it's to stop hate, right? It's to really think about what Megan was saying, just all the learning and all the reaching and all the questioning that we have to do, and to be able to like be courageous enough to have those conversations with some of the closest people to us, whether that's like our parents, right? Our cousins or uncles, folks in our own organizations. So it's really tough, uncomfortable work. But, you know, if you're out there and you're like me and you're a fan of confrontation, and you often feel like an alien, even in the Japanese American community, I'm here for you. You know, we can do this.
Thank you all so much. Yes, it is very important to have solidarity and healing, as Kathy said. And I wanted to go back to that topic of how the reparations contribute to the healing process of Japanese Americans, and like how do you think the healing process of the migrant families could be centered in our movement and organization?
Well, I think that, you know, the redress and reparations movement for Japanese Americans as, those testimonies, I really want to thank the committee, because those oral histories and testimonies were so good, and they were so appropriate for right now. And, you know, and I think the testifiers really, it took so much to testify, as I think Tracy will probably speak about too. But, you know, it wasn't easy. A lot of people didn't want to talk about it, and it took a lot of effort, like by people like Jim Matsuoka and Lillian and Bert Nakano of NCRR and all across the country, really, to encourage people to speak. And I think when they spoke, it was lifting a lot of the pain and anger. And I have to say, I've never heard our communities, and maybe this is, you know, bad on my part, but they were so articulate. They were so articulate, and their emotion was so strong. And I think we were all mesmerized by listening to them. And I was impressed, especially by the women, you know, who could really share feelings in such a good and clear way. And, you know, Amy Mass and Akemi Kikumura talking about, you know, the pain that people feeling betrayed, but also the pain that's passed down to my generation, the Sansei. And I have to admit, though, I feel like I'm admitting a lot of things here, but I have to admit that at the time, I mean, we knew that we were impacted by the camps. You know, we didn't know who we were. We hated who we were, actually, because we didn't know. And this country made you feel like you were supposed to be something else, right? And we had no alternative until Asian American identity was sort of became a thing, became something we knew. But, you know, so I knew that. But I don't think that we, as the older Sansei, really explored that topic that much. And so I think there's still a lot of work for probably our generation to do. And we know that everybody, migrant, African American, there is so much trauma in every community that has been suffering, Native, Indigenous folks that have been held in, and there's so much to undo. And that's going to take a lot of work. I mean, we know that even the separation that our community felt, I mean, I can't even compare with the separations that so many other communities have experienced. But I think the point is that we do understand that trauma. And I think probably the more that we understand our own, the better we will understand others, you know. And the fourth generation and the fifth generation have their trauma as well, which I don't really quite understand, which we need more discussion about. But all of this is kind of I think the thing that we're all learning together right now.
You doing, Mom?
Thanks, Megan.
You know, I think when I think about what reparations could do, when you're talking about migrant families, but, you know, not just, I think also of the indigenous folks and of course, Black folks. It allows us to center the people who are calling principally for it in the first place. It allows us, as it should, the time and space and the ways in which to look back at what created this whole situation in the first place. And different from Japanese American reparations, you know, when looking specifically at what I think Black leaders and organizations are showing us and telling us, it's looking at our history, our collective history, our foundational American history, right? Embedded in what is being asked for today allows us to look at what was wrong with the founding of this country and what has permeated through and through without stopping ever since. I think, you know, Kathy was referencing, you know, my thoughts on the testimonies. I was remiss to include in the introduction that one of my most principal projects for the past many years is a play called Tales of Clamor that we got to collaborate with Kathy and NCRR on to develop, which anchors, it works between the past and present, but the past moment that we follow throughout the play is the journey towards the commission hearings in 1981 that allowed people, not allowed people, that our people fought for, to create space for our people to testify. And again, just like, you know, earlier I was on watching the pilgrimage program along with my Vigilant Love cohort with our Solidarity Arts Fellowship. And, you know, before watching the program, we watched Tad Nakamura's film Pilgrimage, a 21-minute piece. If you haven't seen it, I really urge you to check it out. I think it's available publicly now, but it's just called Pilgrimage. And it reminds us that none of this was given to us. Pilgrimage was not given to us. You know, the good folks at Manzanar alongside Sue Embry and the Manzanar Committee, you know, those folks fought for Manzanar to be a place that the public could return to on a daily basis, right? And likewise, it was our people that fought for redress. Nobody handed it to us. You know, people will say, well, Reagan gave you redress in '88. It's like, no, he got to sign it. He was the lucky one that got to be around to sign the bill, but it was our folks who fought for it. And so, and it was our folks who did it with the support of like all other communities, which just goes back to the idea of solidarity, right? We can't do this alone, and this is about healing for all of us. So when I saw the testimonies and I watched all of them, you know, over 26 hours worth to prepare for in our research, and it's astounding to see people in our community in a media form, emotional, pissed, articulate, you know, and just three-dimensional human beings. And so, Kathy did not bring this up. I'm gonna bring this up for Kathy and NCRR. Speak Out for Justice has a compilation of testimonies that also includes gems. I urge you all to really check this out and, you know, build a whole program around this and NCRR's book about redress and reparations, which really focuses on the grassroots movement. And I think that we're learning that we need to talk about it so much more now as a part of our work in supporting reparations now. So, you know, I could go on and on, but, you know, that's part one of that answer. Megan.
Yeah, so I definitely think that given the way Japanese Americans dealt with things before reparations happened and then after, I mean, not that it was like a huge difference because everyone still had their feelings and everyone was still angry and everyone still was dealing with it in their own way, but I definitely think that reparations could help in any way, because I know some talk for HR 40 has been just giving college to people who are descendants of people who were slaves or things like that. And I definitely think that any type of help will do something and will definitely help in the healing process for these other people in these other groups.
Can I add something to that? Because, in terms of Japanese American redress, we actually, it was a grassroots movement, as Tracy has said, and we really had to figure it out ourselves. It was a 10-year campaign. And we weren't going to let anybody else tell us what we wanted or what we needed. And it was a process that our community went through, because to me, it was a movement that we were building. We were building our community, we were building ourselves, we were building a movement and learning from that. And so one of the things that we want to make as people that worked on redress for Japanese Americans, we also feel that we really want to respect whatever the Black community decides they want to do and how they want to handle it, and all the different ways, because we had many different groups and working on redress that didn't necessarily agree on one way, right? So we really have to respect that as well. There's different ways that people are going to approach it. There's different things that people are going to ask for. And I think Megan said this earlier, listen. We have to listen, we have to learn, we have to just, take the lead, and not take the lead, allow the lead to be taken by others, and always listen to that community. That's the one that's suffering and demanding whatever they're demanding. So I think that's part of what healing has done for us too, that, we understand that. We understand that each community has their own way, and that that's part of the process of I think it's exciting actually to think about what could happen. I think it's going to be probably difficult and messy, like ours was kind of at times, but it could really be, really, I hope that as we all get into it and support it and a positive movement is built, that we will see a lot of good things happen too.
Thank you all so much. I know before, Megan reminded us that we all can do a part by researching and participating, but I would also like to hear from everyone, maybe again, how folks can get involved into the movement, organizing, especially with the rise of social media, activism, and people trying to find their role or what they can bring to the movement during the pandemic.
Yeah, all kinds of ways to get involved. I'll say this much for Nikkei Progressives. We have various committees working on different issues. There's a group working specifically on immigration issues. There are folks who have done a lot of organizing around electoral action. My mom is part of that committee. And we're developing a reparations committee as well. And, we totally invite the more the merrier. We're actually having a program on Monday. I don't even think we have like a graphic yet that we can share, but hopefully soon on the Nikkei Progressives IG on Instagram, you'll be able to see some information about Monday night's Sip and Share. Sip and Share is a space that some of the younger members developed, Mia Yamamoto and Joy Yamaguchi, to make a space where we could get to know each other. So there's a topic at the beginning, and what did I mess up, Kathy? What?
Mia Barnett.
Oh my God, what did I say? Did I say Mia Yamamoto? My hero, Mia Yamamoto. I think that's why. Mia Barnett and Joy Yamaguchi, yeah, they developed this space. And so, there's always some topic or issue that's discussed in the beginning, and then we break out into groups, and then people hang out afterwards into the wee hours just to get to know each other. But this Monday, we actually happen to be doing a focus on reparations work that we're doing and ways in which to get further involved. Just at the beginning of last week, we did a phone banking with over 30 folks who came in and out over a 2-hour period in support of getting co-sponsors onto HR 40 in time for the markup that happened last Wednesday that went through, and it's first ever in 30 years markup. So that was a huge day, and that was a big week. So we're talking within the HR coalition, HR 40 coalition right now, about doing another phone banking in the next coming weeks before the co-sponsorship closes to get more of the House Democrats and maybe even Republicans to sign on. So there are lots of things, you know, to join in, to be a part of the education. We need help. You know, we know that there's so much brilliance out there, and people always come in with like, hey, did you read this thing? Or did you see this thing? And we're always like, oh no, that's so great. Thank you for sharing that. So, you know, really, really, and you don't have to be like JA, you know, like you just, you know, have to be about, you know, the work. So that's one way. And then I have to pitch Vigilant Love. I mean, we have our community, our Bridging Communities Iftar on Thursday, the 29th. And you can definitely go to the Vigilant Love IG and on Facebook to find out more. But it's a really special space if you want to learn more about Ramadan and breaking fast and the work between the Japanese American and Muslim communities. It's a great place and a great way to support some awesome work that's happening. So those are a couple of ways. So you can reach out to me and Kathy about that.
If you would like to share the socials, like put their Facebook, Instagram, feel free to put them in the chat. But our last question for today will be, what experiences have you had where you felt your actions and activism had made a difference?
I hate to be the one that's starting off this answer, but you know, I just want to say that everybody, whatever you do, small or big, you know, in terms of speaking out, or to me, that's activism. And of course, I think that it's more effective if you do it with a group and you work collectively, because like, you know, in terms of redress, we couldn't have won without the grassroots, everybody, you know, many people coming together and pushing it. I mean, it wasn't just that, but it was essential to winning. It was many things, but I feel like, you know, activism is not a special kind of thing, and that everybody can make a difference and can make change wherever they're at. You know, there's so much, because our problem is systemic. Everywhere you look, you're going to find something that you can deal with. So I think that to me is what's important to do.
Sorry, I'm still loading folks' information into the chat. Follow Kathy on Instagram. Kathy, please post more. But yes, please follow. And then I put the information there for Nikkei Progressives and for Vigilant Love. And I'll put my information in a second. You know, the only thing I would add, you know, is on sort of the art avenue. I always ask this of groups that I'm with, you know, how do you consider yourself as a storyteller and a documenter? Show of hands, who's a writer? Who writes screenplays, novels, poetry, essays, articles, emails, text messages? I need to see some hands at text messages, captions. All the hands should be raised by text messages, don't lie. My point being, it doesn't matter what you call yourself or what people call you, right? No one is going to write our stories. No one's going to write your stories. You all come into this space with not just your own experience, but you come into this space with generations before you, but no one's going to write it for you. So I really do urge you, please, to write and share your stories. And in that investigation of your story, I think there is a process of opening up to find the connective tissue between your own personal journey and that of another person and other communities. So I implore you to please, you know, write it down, share it out, and in that process, look for the connective tissue.
Yeah, kind of going off of both what Kathy and Tracy said, I definitely think that when on social media, we need to keep in mind like how we're interacting with posts because it does make a difference. So just kind of remember that a share is better than a comment and a comment is better than a like. So even if it's just a post like an infographic or something, like send it to a friend, send it to anyone, because that helps the popularity go up on that post and it'll help get it on the bigger pages and help other people see it too. So that's the only thing that I want people to remember, if anything, from anything I said.
Thank you all so much. A huge round of applause everyone can give to our panelists, Kathy, Tracy, and Megan. Thank you all so much for your time and your answers. They were so informative. I learned a lot. I hope everyone else learned a lot. And I will now be handing off to Jason for small group discussions.